The galaxy was full of shining stars, but not all stars remembered. Yet somewhere in a quiet corner of space, humanity never forgot. Long ago, many centuries before the present day, a great disaster nearly swallowed 3 entire star systems. A massive star was collapsing in on itself, creating waves of danger that spread across light years. Everyone in the Galactic Council panicked. Worlds feared the end of their suns. Space stations drifted, their people unsure what to do. In that moment of fear, one species answered a call that many ignored. Humans. They were not the oldest race. They were not the most powerful. At that time, they were new travelers among the stars, curious, bold, and determined. When other civilizations debated and delayed, humans prepared. They sent engineers, scientists, energy shield crews, translators, and medical helpers. Their ships were not perfect, but they carried something rare: willpower. For weeks, humans worked side by side with local populations. They built energy nets that slowed the star's collapse. They stabilized trade routes so families could escape. They repaired systems that were thought lost forever. In the middle of darkness, human lights shined bright. When the danger finally passed, the Galactic Council gathered in a great chamber on a moon made of white stone. Representatives from every known species came forward. They looked at the humans, those small, determined creatures who had given everything they could. A counselor from a great tall species raised her hand and said, "Humanity, your help has saved millions. We promise you this. One day when you call, we will come. We will remember. Humans did not ask for treasure. They did not demand control. They simply smiled and recorded the promise in their archives. And time passed. Centuries later, the galaxy had changed. Civilizations grew larger. Technology became brighter and the stars felt smaller. Trade routes connected countless worlds. Empires formed and faded. Names of old battles, old dangers, and old heroes slowly disappeared from songs. But on Earth and across human colonies, a digital archive remained. Inside that archive was a line of text, simple but powerful. A promise ode, Galactic Council Year 2317. It was not placed in the forgotten files. It was kept in the Hall of Memory. Every generation of humans learned its story in their history lessons. Children grew up hearing how their ancestors had stood when others stepped back. It became more than a memory. It became part of who they were. And then, one ordinary cycle, everything changed again. It began with silence. At first, it was small. A few trading stations on the outer rim failed to answer. Then a research outpost near a star cluster disappeared from communication. Automated beacons blinked out one by one. Across the galaxy, whispers started to grow. A single message reached the Galactic Council's central station. It came from a station called Mira's Edge. The voice was weak and full of static. "This is Station Mira's Edge. Anyone receiving? Something is here. Not natural. Help." Then nothing. The council gathered once more on the white stone moon. The chamber was much grander now, full of advanced screens and holograms. Representatives sat in tall chairs, their voices a mix of confusion and fear. "We must analyze more data before acting," one said. "We should send scouts." "But carefully," another added. "This may not be serious," said a third. They spoke for many hours. They formed committees. They discussed probabilities. But as the silence in the stars grew louder, their actions remained slow. Then someone mentioned the humans. A gray-scaled representative leaned forward. "They keep old records. If this is what I think it is, they will remember. They always do." Another representative frowned. "Humans? They have been quiet for centuries. They withdrew from our politics. They don't sit on the council anymore. But they never stopped listening," the gray-scaled one replied. And they were right. Far from the council's chambers, on a green-blue world orbiting a calm sun, humans received the same distress call. It was routed through an ancient listening network, built long ago, maintained carefully through the years. The humans reacted differently. They didn't debate for hours. They didn't form 10 committees. Instead, their network came alive like a heartbeat. Messages flashed across colonies and stations. Emergency signal received. Sector Mira archive tag detected. Prepare response. Inside a command room, a woman named Captain Alara watched the old promise file on a glowing screen. She was tall, calm, and steady. She had grown up hearing the story of that promise since she was a child. Her hand hovered above a simple line in the file. "We will come." she whispered almost to herself, and so will we. Within 2 days, human fleets began to move. Not war fleets, but ships with purpose. Medical vessels, research crafts, energy platform carriers, even tiny scout ships joined the convoy. Every ship carried a symbol on its side, a glowing star wrapped by 2 hands. It was the emblem of the Promise Fleet. From the surface of Earth to the edges of human colonies, people watched the fleet rise. Some were scientists, some were engineers, some were pilots. All of them understood why they were going. They weren't responding for power. They weren't doing it for fame. They were answering because once, long ago, the galaxy had promised to stand with them, and humanity never lets a promise fade. Meanwhile, back on the Council Moon, debate still continued. Representatives argued over the risk. Some feared that involving humanity again would make them too important. Others whispered that humans had become strange, different from the rest of the galaxy. They lived more quietly, but their technology advanced in ways others did not fully understand. But before any vote could finish, a soft alarm echoed in the chamber. A young officer rushed in with wide eyes. Council members, human ships have entered Mira Sector. The room fell silent. What do you mean, entered? A voice asked. They didn't ask permission, the officer replied nervously. They just went. And then the great chamber filled with whispers again. Not of fear this time, but something else. Something older. Something like memory. In Mira Sector, stars stretched across black space like silver threads. Empty stations drifted. Broken beacons flashed weak signals into the void. Where others saw danger, the humans saw patterns. Their scout ships moved smoothly, scanning, recording, observing. Their research vessels deployed floating arrays to map invisible energy waves. Medical ships set up calm, bright zones around the sector's edges. Every movement was practiced, like a dance learned long ago. Captain Alara stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking at the holographic map of Mira Sector. It looked like a puzzle waiting to be solved. Her second officer, a young man named Kai, spoke softly. Captain, the Council hasn't officially approved our entry. She smiled, not with arrogance, but with quiet confidence. The galaxy made a promise. We're just making sure it's not forgotten. Kai nodded. He understood. Everyone on that ship did. Across the sector, small lights flickered to life as human probes connected to ancient Council beacons. Data flowed in. The silence was still there, but now it was being listened to, measured, mapped, understood. Meanwhile, on the Council Moon, representatives watched the human response in real time. Their own fleets had not even left their docks. Yet in less than 72 hours, the humans had established a safe network in Mira Sector. Do they always act like this? Someone whispered. They always have, said the gray-scaled representative. A silence spread through the chamber. A different kind of silence. Not fear, not confusion, but the weight of a promise remembered. On the flagship, Captain Alara received a final transmission from the Human Central Archive. It was short and simple. A message carried through the centuries. Honor the promise. She looked out at the starfield. For a moment, she imagined those first humans who had stood on broken stations centuries ago, facing disaster with nothing but determination and light. She felt a connection to them, not just in history but in spirit. She spoke softly, but the whole crew heard her. Humanity remembers. Outside, the human fleet spread its wings of light across Mira Sector like a sunrise. Stations that had been dark now showed small sparks of energy. A signal was growing stronger in the center of the silence. Something was there. Something that had caused the distress call, but fear did not fill the human ships. They were not here to run. They were here to keep their word. In the council chamber, a representative stood slowly and said, "If they remember this well, maybe we should too." One by one, the council's ships finally began to prepare for launch, and so it began. A single promise made long ago and kept alive in the hearts of humans was awakening the galaxy again. It was not a fleet of conquerors that entered Mira Sector. It was a fleet of memory, of trust, of quiet power. And somewhere in the dark, something listened back. Humanity never lets a debt fade. The stars were about to remember why. Mira Sector had never been this quiet. Once, its stations had shined like pearls scattered across a sea of stars. Trade ships had moved back and forth like threads weaving a bright tapestry. But now silence filled everything. Silent stations, silent beacons, silent skies. Into that silence came the humans. Their fleet glided through the starfield like a flowing river of light. There were no loud announcements, no demands, no grand speeches. Only quiet action. Engines whispered through space. Lights blinked softly across blackness. Their ships formed an elegant pattern, a net of care and observation. Captain Ilara stood at the front window of her flagship, Aurora's Promise, watching the other ships take their places. She felt the weight of history on her shoulders but carried it with calm pride. It wasn't a burden. It was a bond. "Fleet positions are stable," said Kai, the young second officer, reading from his panel. "Research vessels have linked with the old Council beacons. We're already receiving energy readings." "Good," Ilara replied. "Let's start listening." All across the fleet, humans began their work. Their technology was advanced, but not in a way that shouted power. Instead, it was like quiet intelligence, a design made to blend, to adapt, to understand. Their scanners didn't just search for signals. They listened for rhythms, patterns, hidden details. In the research vessel, Star Whisper, a scientist named Dr. Alina sat at her console. She had soft brown hair tied back in a simple braid, and her eyes reflected the starry light outside. Her team had connected to an old station that hadn't spoken in months. "No power signatures," one technician said. Alina tilted her head slightly. "No active signatures," she corrected. "But something is there. Listen closely." She turned up the sensitivity of the scanners. A faint pulse, almost like a heartbeat, echoed through the instruments. It was not mechanical noise. It was steady, rhythmic. Alina smiled softly. "There you are." Meanwhile, on the council moon, the debate had changed. In the beginning, the council members had argued about whether they should act. Now they were arguing about how they should respond to the humans. Their fleets were still preparing to leave. Many representatives watched the live feed of the human fleet with wide eyes. They moved so fast. One representative whispered, "They act like they've been waiting for this day." Another added, "Maybe," the gray-scaled representative said quietly. They were. Back in Mira Sector, the first station flickered. The old station was called Mira's Edge, the same one that had sent the weak distress call. Its lights had been dark for weeks. Now, under the gentle connection of human energy fields, small lamps along its surface began to glow again. On the bridge of the Aurora's Promise, Kai leaned forward. "We're getting minimal life support readings from Mira's Edge. Systems are waking up." Ilara nodded. "Keep it steady. Don't force anything. Humans didn't rush. They didn't break things open. They carefully warmed the old systems, letting the structure breathe again after its long silence. The idea wasn't to control it. The idea was to help it remember what it once was. A soft tone rang on Ilara's console. It was a message from the Council. "Human fleet, this is the Galactic Council. You have entered a high-risk zone without approval. We request immediate coordination and explanation." Ilara read it, smiled lightly, and then replied with calm words. "Council, we are not here to control. We are here to honor a promise." And she sent no more than that. By the time the Council's fleets finally launched, the humans had already mapped 1/3 of Mira Sector. Their ships moved in calm formation. Their probes floated between stations, connecting invisible lines of data. The humans worked together with quiet unity, almost as if they were one living being. Dr. Alina's team made the first real discovery. On Mira's Edge, deep in the silent data core, a single file was found. It was old, simple, a recorded message. The message came from the station's central system, speaking in a soft artificial voice. "This station has experienced an unknown signal. Systems entered safe mode. Unknown signal continues. No threat identified. Data attached." Alina tapped on the attached data. A wave of soft harmonic tones filled the air. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't an alarm. It sounded almost like music, slow, rising, falling like the breath of a sleeping giant. Her heart beat a little faster, not from fear, but from wonder. "This isn't just a signal. It's communication." The technician beside her frowned. "But it's not a language," she smiled. "Not one we know. But humans like learning new things." Meanwhile, in the council chamber, representatives watched the humans working. No panic, no shouting, just gentle, confident coordination. "They treat this like a promise," someone said. The gray-scaled representative folded his hands. "Because it is." "Do you think they'll succeed?" The gray-scaled one gave a slow smile. They usually do. As the hours passed, more stations slowly woke up. The silent network of Mira Sector started breathing again, and with every pulse of energy, the strange harmonic signal grew clearer. It spread like a song through the network, soft, repeating, asking to be understood. Captain Alara walked into the research bay of the Aurora's Promise, where Alina's team had been working. The sound filled the room like a calm ocean wave. "It's beautiful," Alara said softly. "It's trying to speak to us," Alina replied. "I don't think it's dangerous," Alara nodded. "Let's listen carefully. And if we can, let's answer." Human communications specialists began working on translation, not with weapons, not with fear. With sound, mathematics, and patience, they created harmonic patterns in reply to the mysterious signal. Like two singers in the dark, they sent out a gentle song and waited. And then, something answered. It was faint, almost like the first note of a long-forgotten melody, but it was clear. The signal was no longer repeating itself randomly. It was now responding to human tones. Alara leaned forward. "It's listening." Kai smiled, almost amazed. "We're talking to it." The Galactic Council fleets finally arrived, large and bright. Their ships were strong, their engines loud, their formations careful. When they entered Mira Sector, they expected to find confusion. Maybe danger. Maybe a mess. Instead, they found light. Human ships were calmly floating across the starfield. Stations that were once cold now glowed softly. Data lines shone between structures. And in the background, an elegant harmonic signal filled the sector. No longer alone, but joined by the humans' answering tones. A council commander opened the channel to Alara. "Human fleet." "What is this?" Alara answered with quiet steadiness. "It's a song." The commander blinked in surprise. What?" "A song asking not to be forgotten," Alara replied. The council fleet slowly began to lower their energy levels, as if instinctively matching the calm rhythm of the humans. It wasn't a rule. It just happened. Later that day, the Council and the human fleet held their first joint meeting in centuries. It took place aboard a neutral platform near Mira's edge. The room was round and open, with a transparent wall showing the stars outside. Councilors entered with formal steps. Human representatives entered with quiet smiles. There was no hostility, no rivalry, just an old promise floating between them like a quiet star. A council member stood and said, "Humanity, why did you come here without waiting for us?" Alara stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but it carried a weight that filled the room. "Because long ago," she said, "you promised, and we promised too. You said you would come when we called. We said we would never forget. This isn't about who leads. It's about what was promised." The room grew silent. A younger council member, clearly moved, asked softly, "You really remembered all this time?" "Yes," Alara replied. "We never let a promise fade." In the following cycles, humans and council fleets worked side by side for the first time in centuries. Together, they built a harmonic translation array around Mira's edge. With each passing hour, the mysterious signal became clearer. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a threat. It was a message, something old, something waiting to be understood. As they listened more deeply, they realized the signal was everywhere in Mira Sector. It was in the energy of the stars, the metal of the stations, the soft waves of empty space, like a gentle reminder carved into the galaxy itself. Alina wrote in her logbook, "Sometimes the universe doesn't shout. Sometimes it sings, and those who remember to listen hear its secrets." Far away on Earth, the Hall of Memory received the first decoded part of the signal. It was just one line, translated from harmonic to words. The stars remember those who keep their word. And with that message, something subtle changed in the galaxy. Not a war, not an explosion, something quieter. Trust began to rise again, like a seed that had been sleeping too long. Humanity had not come with fire. They had come with memory, and memory was powerful. As the sun of Mira Sector rose over the stations once again, the fleet's lights merged with its soft glow. Alara stood at the window of her ship, watching the growing cooperation below. Kai walked up beside her. "Captain, they're starting to follow our lead." Alara smiled faintly. "We're not leading. We're reminding." He tilted his head. "Reminding of what?" She looked at the sunrise across the stars. "Of promises. of who we were, of who we can be again. In the council chamber far away, a representative quietly added something to their personal archive. A line of text inspired by the human's old record. Promise renewed, year 2717. It wasn't a law. It wasn't an order. But it meant everything. Art of Mira Sector had become alive in a way no one expected. Once empty and silent, it now hummed softly with energy. Stations blinked like fireflies. Signals pulsed through space. The mysterious harmonic wave, which had first frightened and puzzled everyone, now seemed to respond to human presence. Captain Alara walked along the bridge of her flagship, Aurora's Promise. She watched the crew move with quiet focus. Each person knew their role, and each role had been practiced countless times across colonies and training simulations. Yet the thrill of discovery still lifted their spirits. There was something in this signal, a presence that was not human, not entirely alien, but deeply curious. "We have 3 new active nodes," reported Kai, his eyes scanning the holographic map. "The signal is spreading across the outer ring. It's like it's searching for us." Alara nodded. "It is, and we must answer. Humanity doesn't just observe. We respond." Far below in the research vessel Star Whisper, Dr. Alina leaned over a console. Her team had been decoding the harmonic signal for days. At first, it had seemed impossible. Patterns that repeated but never made sense. Frequencies that overlapped and shifted unpredictably. But humans were patient, and patience was their strength. "I think we're getting it," she said, pointing at a visual pattern. "It's not just sound. It's movement, energy, and math all combined. Whoever or whatever sent this wants us to understand." One of the junior technicians frowned. "But what is it saying?" Alina smiled. "Not words, not yet. But it's showing us a path. Follow these pulses and we'll find something important." Meanwhile, council representatives watched the human-led operations with growing awe. Their own fleets had been cautious and slow. They had waited for authorization, debated possibilities, and double-checked every decision. Humans acted differently. Humans remembered. A silver-winged counselor spoke quietly to her companion. "They do not just respond. They anticipate, organize, and harmonize everything around them." The companion tilted his head. "It is as if they are listening to the universe itself." "They are," the silver-winged one said, "and because of that, they can act in ways we cannot." As humans followed the signal deeper into the sector, they discovered clusters of stations long abandoned. Some had been inoperative for centuries, some had suffered minor collapses, and yet under human care each station slowly awakened. Lights blinked on, power conduits hummed, sensors aligned. It was not magic. It was methodical attention to detail, based on understanding the system's history. Captain Alara moved among the stations in her fleet via small shuttle trips. She observed technicians connecting energy lines, harmonics engineers tuning frequencies, and communication specialists sending gentle responses to the mysterious signal. At every step, the humans treated the stations as living things, not machines. Kai joined her in the shuttle. "Captain, do you think it knows we're here?" Ilara watched the soft glow of a newly activated station. "I don't know, but it knows someone is listening." And that was enough. On one of the outer stations, Dr. Alina's team made a significant breakthrough. They discovered that the harmonic wave was linked to an ancient network of energy conduits running throughout Mira Sector. It was almost as if the sector itself were alive, with stations serving as nodes in a vast communication web. "It's not a weapon," Alina said, her voice full of excitement. "It's a network. A memory system. Something left behind to observe and connect." One of her team asked, "But why did it go silent for so long?" Alina paused. Perhaps it was waiting for someone to remember it. Someone who keeps their word. Her words hung in the air like a promise. Captain Alara and her officers decided to test this theory. They arranged a harmonic pattern that mirrored the original signal but added a layer of human response. Careful, respectful, and deliberate. The moment they activated the sequence, the sector seemed to react. Stations shifted energy patterns. Signals aligned. Light moved along conduits like a river flowing in response to gentle wind. The harmonic wave pulsed back stronger, clearer, more coherent than ever. Kai leaned over the console, astonished. "It's listening, and it's responding." Alara's eyes shone with quiet pride. "This is what we've trained for. Understanding first, acting second. Humanity doesn't just take We connect. Across the sector, the Galactic Council watched in silence. Their commanders and officers had expected humans to need guidance. Instead, humans guided the sector itself. They were not demanding obedience. They were offering coordination. It was subtle, but powerful. One council member whispered to another, "Do you see what they're doing?" "Yes," the other replied. "They're reminding the universe why promises matter." Meanwhile, the mysterious harmonic wave began to form a pattern that humans could interpret. Over time, it became clear the signal was asking for help. Not from humans specifically, but from those who could respond with understanding and care. It was a test, a puzzle, and a call for action all in one. Dr. Alina watched the signals transform on her screen. "It's showing us a location. There's something at the center of Mira sector, hidden behind layers of energy interference." Captain Alara received the report immediately. "Good, prepare a team. We're going to see this for ourselves." The shuttle teams gathered. Engineers, scientists, and communication specialists formed a careful group, ready to enter an area the Council had avoided for decades. Their goal was not confrontation. It was understanding. The journey to the sector's center was slow but deliberate. Energy patterns shifted unpredictably, yet humans adapted quickly. Every decision was measured. Every step was precise. And through it all, the signal continued to guide them. At last, they arrived at a station unlike any they had seen. It floated quietly, surrounded by an invisible field of energy. The station appeared empty. No lights, no life. Yet the harmonic signal was strongest here, resonating like a heartbeat. Alara stood at the shuttle window, staring. "This is it," she said. "Whatever this is, it's been waiting for someone who remembers." Kai adjusted the sensors. "It's beautiful. Not dangerous, just alive." Alina's voice came through the comm, full of wonder. "I've never seen anything like this. It's a living network, and it's reaching out to us." Alara nodded. "Then we answer." For the first time in centuries, humans made direct contact with the ancient system. Using harmonic patterns, energy alignment, and careful sequencing, they began to integrate the station into the sector's network. The response was immediate. Energy conduits glowed. Data streams flowed. The station's voice, once silent, now pulsed with recognition. It did not speak in words, but humans understood. This network was a record of promises, a memory of care, a reminder of those who had once acted with selflessness, and humans were adding their own echoes to the record. Dr. Alina whispered, "It's like..." "It knows we are here to honor it," Alara smiled. "Yes, we're not here to take. We're here to remember." The Galactic Council watched with awe. Their fleets had never encountered anything like this. Humans moved calmly, patiently, and with a clear purpose. They restored balance, revived systems, and communicated with something that had been dormant for centuries. No other species had attempted this. Most would have treated the station as an obstacle. Humans treated it as a partner. One counselor said quietly, This is why humans are different. They don't just act. They remember. They honor." By the end of the cycle, the sector's network had fully awakened. Stations that had been silent for centuries now thrummed with energy. The harmonic wave had become a dialogue. Humans had not conquered. They had connected. And in doing so, they had reminded the galaxy of something old but vital. Promises are not just words. They are living bonds. Captain Alara stood on the bridge of Aurora's Promise, looking out at the glowing sector. "We've done more than follow a signal," she said softly. "We've reminded the universe of what it means to keep a promise." Kai looked at her, smiling. "And the Council will remember too." Alara nodded. "Yes, but more importantly, so will the sector itself." Somewhere, deep within the station's systems, a faint pulse echoed, a pulse that had waited centuries for humans. It was not a weapon. It was not a warning. It was gratitude. And it was now a bond. In that moment, Mira Sector was no longer silent. It had a voice, and humanity had been its first listener. Mira Sector was alive, but not entirely safe. The network of stations and energy conduits had awakened, yet something remained unstable. Subtle distortions pulsed through space, fluctuations in energy that had been dormant for centuries. Humans could feel it, not as fear, but as a problem to solve. Captain Alara stood on the bridge of Aurora's Promise, her eyes scanning the holographic map of the sector. Streams of glowing lines connected stations like veins carrying energy. Yet at the heart of the sector, a central node emitted irregular pulses. Kai, ever observant, leaned closer. "Captain, the pulses are increasing. If we don't stabilize the node, the entire sector could lose synchronization." Ilara nodded, calm but focused. "Then we stabilize it. That is our task. Humanity doesn't run from a challenge. We solve it." Across the fleet, humans began preparing. Engineers checked harmonic calibrators. Scientists adjusted energy alignments, and communication specialists prepared sequences to interact with the ancient network. Every action was coordinated, precise, and purposeful. Unlike other species, humans did not panic. They worked together with quiet confidence. Dr. Alina, aboard the Star Whisper, studied the central node. "This isn't destructive," she said. "It's a safeguard. The energy fluctuations are a protective measure built centuries ago." "It's meant to prevent misuse," a junior technician asked nervously. "But if we fail?" Alina smiled reassuringly. "Humans rarely fail when they remember what matters. We don't just act. We consider, plan, and execute." Her words were simple but carried the essence of centuries of human philosophy. Captain Ilara called a meeting with her senior officers. The room hummed with quiet energy. "We are about to stabilize the central node," she said. "It has been waiting for someone who understands. The sector will respond to our care, not our force. Remember, this is not a battle. This is a promise fulfilled." Kai looked at her with admiration. "And if the network resists?" Ilara's calm eyes met his. "Then we listen more carefully. Humanity never forces, we adapt, we remember." The shuttle teams moved into position around the central node. It floated like a silent monument, surrounded by the pulsing energy field. The humans connected their devices, adjusted frequencies, and began harmonizing with the node's irregular rhythm. The sector seemed to hold its breath. At first, nothing happened. The pulses continued, sometimes quick, sometimes slow, fluctuating like a storm. The other council fleets watched, unsure of what to do. Their commanders whispered among themselves. Many had expected humans to act recklessly, but the humans moved with calm precision. Ilara adjusted the primary harmonic tuner. She looked at Kai. "Ready?" Kai nodded. "Ready." She pressed the command. A soft harmonic wave spread from the human fleet into the sector, aligning with the node's irregular pulses. At first, the response was weak. The node seemed to test them, probing their intentions. But humans were patient. They adjusted frequencies, refined patterns, and mirrored the node's rhythm with careful attention. It was a dialogue without words, a conversation in energy, light, and sound. Slowly, the pulses began to respond. "Look," Dr. Alina whispered. "It's aligning. The node is harmonizing with our sequences." The central node glowed brighter, and the energy field around it softened. The network seemed to breathe again, as if it had been waiting centuries for someone who could listen. Ilara's voice, calm but commanding, echoed in the control room. "Good, keep it steady. Do not rush. This is not about speed. It is about understanding." The crew worked tirelessly, adjusting and responding. Their patience and coordination reminded everyone watching that humans were not just fast or strong. They were persistent, clever, and capable of seeing beyond the obvious. Outside, the Galactic Council fleets observed the transformation. The energy that had seemed dangerous or unstable now became graceful and orderly. Council members murmured among themselves, "Humans, they're restoring balance without using force," a silver-winged counselor whispered. "They are extraordinary," another counselor nodded. "They act not out of dominance but understanding. They remember promises and they honor them." The central node pulsed steadily now, in perfect harmony with the human fleet sequences. Yet there was one final step. The node's energy was still slightly irregular, a subtle echo of centuries of dormancy. Ilara knew they needed to fully synchronize the network to prevent any further instability. "We are ready for the final sequence," she announced. "This will integrate the node with the sector's network completely. All units follow my lead." The fleet responded immediately. Every ship, every station, every technician contributed. Energy waves moved in precise patterns, weaving through the sector like threads in a tapestry. The node's pulse merged with the human's harmonics. Slowly, the irregularities disappeared. The sector's energy flowed smoothly, perfectly coordinated. A soft cheer echoed across human ships, not loud, not boastful, but quiet and full of satisfaction. Mira Sector was fully alive again. The network had remembered humanity, and humanity had remembered the sector. Kai looked at Alara with wonder. We did it. The sector. It's stable. Alara nodded, smiling. Yes, but more than that, we reminded it what care and patience mean. Humanity never forgets. Dr. Alina, watching from the research vessel, whispered to her team. It's beautiful. Not just the technology, but the principle. Patience, persistence, understanding. That's the human way. The Galactic Council, finally convinced, sent a message to Alara. Human fleet, we have witnessed your work. We see that you have restored the sector safely and effectively. Your methods are remarkable. Alara replied simply, we honor the promise. Mira Sector is alive again. It remembers because we remembered. The Council paused. A quiet sense of admiration filled their chambers. They had witnessed a species not seeking control, not seeking recognition, but seeking to fulfill a principle older than most stars. In the following cycles, the human fleet continued to stabilize Mira Sector. Minor fluctuations appeared occasionally, but humans treated them as opportunities to adjust and listen. The sector responded to human care in ways no other species had imagined. Slowly, news of their success spread across the galaxy. Other civilizations were amazed. Humans had entered a forgotten sector, faced an ancient network of unknown design, and restored it not by power but by patience, intelligence, and dedication to principle. It became a lesson for all. Humans do not simply act. They understand, anticipate, and remember. Their strength lay not in force but in thought, collaboration, and honor. Captain Alara stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking out at the harmonized energy of the sector. Light rippled along the stations, flowing along conduits like a river of stars. Humans, council officers, and scientists worked together, yet the calm efficiency of the human fleet set the rhythm. Kai joined her. Do you think the sector will continue to remember? Alara smiled. It will, because memory is strongest when someone honors it. Mira Sector remembers today, not because it had to, but because we responded. Humanity never forgets a debt. We honor it, and that creates trust, stability, life. Kai nodded slowly. I understand now. We don't just help. We inspire. Alara's eyes shone. Yes, and that is why humanity will always be remembered. By the end of the cycle, Mira Sector was fully alive, stabilized and humming with a gentle, constant energy. Stations were awake. Trade routes reopened. Communication lines flowed smoothly, and the harmonic wave, once mysterious and unpredictable, now resonated like a chorus of gratitude throughout the sector. Somewhere deep in the network, a faint pulse echoed, a pulse that had waited centuries for someone who could respond with understanding. That pulse carried a simple truth. Promises are living bonds, and those who honor them can change the course of the universe. Captain Alara stood quietly, watching the stars. Mira Sector was not just stable, it was alive, aware, and thankful. Humans had not forced their way. They had not demanded recognition. They had acted as they always did, with patience, skill, and respect for life. And in doing so, they had reminded the galaxy why humanity's actions were extraordinary. Mira Sector glowed like a living jewel in the darkness of space. Every station, every conduit, every pulse of energy moved in harmony. The once silent sector had become vibrant, alive, and aware. The mysterious harmonic wave, now fully understood and integrated, hummed gently, a soft reminder of what had been restored. Captain Alara stood on the bridge of Aurora's promise, gazing at the flowing patterns of energy. Each ripple reflected not just technology but care. The sector had survived and it thrived, not because of force but because of attention, patience, and dedication. Humanity had done what others could not. They remembered and they acted with purpose. Kai, ever curious, approached her. Captain, it's amazing. The sector is alive again. And it seems happy, Alara smiled. Yes, Kai, but happiness isn't the word I'd use. It's awareness. The sector knows it is valued. That is the result of keeping a promise. Across Mira Sector, humans and council fleets worked together to finalize the network. Minor irregularities appeared, but humans treated each as an opportunity to refine their work. They carefully adjusted frequencies, aligned energy flows, and restored dormant systems. Every correction was subtle, Yet every action carried weight. Dr. Alina, observing the data from Star Whisper, looked at the screens with wonder. "It's responding to our care," she said softly. "Not just to our tools or machines, but to how we approach it. It's alive in a way I never imagined." A junior scientist, wide-eyed, asked, "Do other species have this ability?" Alina shook her head. "Not like humans. Humans, remember, they honor promises. That memory gives them power, but not force. It gives life." On the Council Moon, the Galactic Council finally began to grasp the significance of human action. Representatives gathered in the observation chamber, watching the sector through human-harmonized feeds. The energy that had seemed unstable before now flowed like a river, precise and beautiful. "They didn't just stabilize the sector," said a silver-winged counselor quietly. "They restored it to life itself." Another counselor nodded. "And they did so without force, without demands, without taking credit. This is extraordinary." The gray-scaled counselor, ever calm, added, "Humans honor debts. They remember promises. That is why they can change things others cannot." The room fell silent. Everyone felt the truth of that statement. In Mira Sector, news of humanity's success spread rapidly. Stations that had been abandoned for centuries reopened. Trading routes long blocked by fear and uncertainty came alive again. Scientists and explorers returned to study the sector, now safe and fully operational. And everywhere the harmonic wave sang. It pulsed gently across space, a living record of gratitude. But it was not only a message of thanks, it was also a message of example. Whoever entered the sector now could see that care, attention, and integrity could achieve what force could not. Humans had done more than solve a problem. They had set a standard. Captain Ilara convened her fleet for a final briefing. The ships had worked together seamlessly for weeks, each person contributing in their way. Engineers had restored failing conduits, scientists had decoded the wave, pilots had positioned stations, and communicators had harmonized signals. The fleet had become more than a group of ships, it had become a symbol. "We've done what we came to do," Ilara said, her voice calm and steady. "Mira Sector is safe. Its network is alive. The promise has been honored. But our work is more than fixing machines. It is showing the galaxy that promises matter, that memory matters, that care matters." Kai, standing beside her, smiled. "And the Council? They've seen it too." "Yes," Ilara replied. "They have seen it. And so has the universe." The Galactic Council, impressed beyond measure, sent a formal message of recognition to humanity. It was not a command. It was not a decree. It was an acknowledgement of principle. Humanity has reminded the galaxy of the value of promises. The Council honors your actions. Your approach has set a standard for cooperation, care, and wisdom. Ilara read the message quietly. "They honor the principle, not just the act," she said. "That is more important than recognition." Kai tilted his head. "So the debt is truly paid?" Ilara smiled softly. "Not paid, Kai. The debt is fulfilled. And like all true promises, it continues to ripple forward." In the weeks following the stabilization, humans did something remarkable. They did not leave immediately. Instead, they stayed to teach others how to listen. Council fleets, once unsure, observed human methods. Scientists and engineers from different species learned to harmonize with the sector's energy network, guided by human patience and wisdom. It was not leadership imposed. It was guidance offered. Humans showed that understanding, persistence, and respect could achieve more than authority, speed, or dominance. And those who learned began to pass it forward. Dr. Alina, writing in her journal, captured it best. "Humans are not the strongest. They are not the fastest. But they are the most faithful to what matters. They honor what others forget. That is their true power." Captain Ilara's fleet began preparing to depart. Mira Sector hummed softly in farewell, a gentle acknowledgement that it would never forget those who had restored it. The station's lights blinked in subtle patterns, almost like a wave of gratitude. Kai looked out at the starfield. "Do you think the sector will continue to remember us?" Ilara nodded. "Yes. Memory does not fade when it is honored. We've added our care to its song, and that song will now carry forward for centuries." The Galactic Council, watching from afar, finally understood. Humanity had done more than stabilize a sector. They had created a legacy of honor, patience, and the power of keeping promises. Years passed. Mira Sector thrived under the careful guidance of species that had learned from humans. Stations that had been abandoned for centuries now housed vibrant communities of scientists, traders, and explorers. The harmonic wave continued to pulse through space, no longer a mystery, but a living reminder of care and integrity. And somewhere in the archives of humanity, the record of Mira Sector was stored, carefully preserved for future generations. A simple note accompanied it, a promise honored. The galaxy remembers because humanity remembered first. Children on Earth and across colonies learned the story in their schools. They did not hear about battles or conquest. They heard about care, patience, and keeping promises. They learned that humans had not simply acted, they had inspired, guided, and connected. And inspiration, they were taught, could travel farther than any starship, survive longer than any weapon, and echo across generations. Captain Alara retired from active fleet duty, yet she remained a mentor to young humans entering space exploration. She often told them the same words she had spoken in Mira Sector. Humanity never lets a debt fade. We do not act out of fear. We do not act out of pride. We act because memory is our strength and care is our path. The universe may forget, but we will not. And through us, it remembers. Kai, now a senior officer himself, often repeated her words to his crew. The lesson became a guiding principle. Act with purpose, honor your word, and trust that care is more powerful than force. Back in Mira Sector, the central node pulsed steadily, sending harmonic waves across the starfield. The energy network, once dormant, now thrived as a living memory of human care. Scientists from various species continued to study it, but all acknowledged the same truth. Without humans, Mira Sector might never have been restored. The Galactic Council recorded the event in their archives as a turning point. They acknowledged not only the technical success but also the principle demonstrated by humanity, that remembering promises and acting with integrity could reshape the galaxy. And somewhere among the stars, the faint echo of human dedication continued to travel, through energy, through stories, and through memory. Humanity's influence was quiet but profound. It was a presence that inspired others to act with patience, care, and thoughtfulness. Captain Alara, watching from Earth one quiet evening, reflected on everything that had happened. Mira Sector was safe. The galaxy had witnessed the power of honor and memory. Generations of humans had carried the promise across centuries. And that promise had changed the universe, not by fire or force, but by simple, determined action. She whispered softly, almost to herself. Humanity remembered, and in remembering we changed everything. The stars above glimmered as if in agreement. Mira Sector pulsed, alive and aware, carrying the song of a promise fulfilled, and the universe, vast and silent in its own way, had learned a lesson. Humans may be small, but when they remember, when they honor their word, they can shake the galaxy in the gentlest, most powerful way. And so, the story ended not with battle or conquest, but with a quiet, enduring truth. Promises kept are stronger than any weapon. Memory is the greatest force. Humanity never lets a debt fade.